You're listening to the Rattle On podcast powered by Arena Football Talk. Welcome to episode 1 of the Rattle On podcast. This has been about a month in the making, and I finally get to bring you episode 1, courtesy of Arena Football Talk. Thank you very much, Derek. As of recording, it is Wednesday, so it's been about 4 days since the Arizona Rattlers fell at home to the Northern Arizona Wranglers 62-53 in the first round of the playoffs. Number 1 team in the Western Conference taken down by a 7-8 football club, but don't exactly let that fool you, because the Wranglers are still the reigning IFL champions. But then again, to Rattlers fans, coaches, players, that's not exactly a consolation prize. So I want to talk about this game again. I want to just one more time do a detailed dive on this football game because the range of emotions is kind of ridiculous here. So it starts off, Northern Arizona wins that coin toss, and typically Arizona has solid luck. They typically win the coin toss, they always defer. And the mindset behind it is simple. You get the football to start the second half, you get the opportunity to kind of establish the second half, establish the pace of play, the level of play, and if the Rattlers already have a lead at halftime, you get the opportunity to further add on to it. Some positive news for the Rattlers on the injury front. Braxton Haley, who had not played a game since June 11th at Bay Area, was available to play in this game. On the flip side, Ramad Chakio-Bowman, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, RCB, the star wide receiver for the Northern Arizona Wranglers, who did not play in the final game of the regular season, was available for the playoffs. Anyway, Naz wins the coin toss, elects to defer, Rattlers get the ball to start the game, and the drive starts off well with an 11-yard gain by Jamal Miles. Then Arizona's offense just stutters out with 11 minutes and 38 seconds to go in the first quarter. An incomplete pass on 4th and 6 causes a turnover on downs. In the first offensive play of the game for Northern Arizona, a 30-yard pass to Ramad Chakio-Bowman. You can't make it up. You can't make that stuff up because the very first play is the Wranglers taking full advantage of having the best wide receiver out there on the field, and the Rattlers, despite knowing how good RCB is, just can't stop him. And I was speaking with Ed Cole about this before the Week 18 matchup. Great players, you can't expect to stop them, you can only contain them, and the Rattlers did not do a good job containing RCB. Shortly after, RCB with a 13-yard touchdown, Arizona had an illegal defense penalty declined on that play. The point after was no good at the very least, and with 10 minutes and 27 seconds to go in the first quarter, it is 6-0 Northern Arizona. On the kickoff, the ball bounces out of bounds and it's placed at the 5-yard line. Logically, you don't have a whole lot of field to work with, you want to start attacking the ground. Drew Powell goes for a deep pass intending to hit Isaiah Houston, but Northern Arizona's defensive back, number 21, just kind of reads the play correctly and jumps in front of it. Interception at the 23-yard line. When you're down 6-0, it's still a one-possession game at that point, but when you're down 6-0, you need to respond, and turning the football over just does not help you accomplish that. I know, only controversial takes on this show. I'm not going to be too hard on Drew for that pass because honestly, it was a pretty decent pass. The defender just read it well. Not too long after that, Northern Arizona, a 29-yard touchdown, drop kick is good. It's 14-0 with 8 minutes and 15 seconds to go in the first quarter, and now it's officially a two-possession game, and Northern Arizona gets back that point they lost in the first point after attempt. On the Rattlers' next offensive drive, Drew Powell actually gets pushed into the stands after a short run, a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty, and also an illegal defense penalty for another 5 yards. 1st and 10 on Northern Arizona's 18-yard line at the 6-minute 59-second mark. I might as well bring this up now. Throughout the first half, there was at least 3 or 4 hits where Drew was just a little slow to get up, and I'm not going to lie, I was holding my breath at least a little bit throughout the first half. About 3 minutes later, Jamal Miles, a 6-yard rushing touchdown. Point after is good. 14-7 Northern Arizona with 3 minutes and 1 second to go in the first quarter. Northern Arizona commits a holding penalty during the return. 1st and 10 on their own 6-yard line. 2 minutes 46 seconds to go in the first. Then Ulrich Jones with a massive tackle for loss. A 5-yard loss, putting the ball on the 1-yard line with 2 minutes to go, and the Rattlers maintain that pressure, forcing a turnover on downs with 22 seconds to go in the first quarter. The value of guys like Ulrich Jones to this defense cannot be understated, because the Rattlers had what feels like a typical slow start. Over the last handful of weeks, despite this 8-game winning streak, they tend to start off the game sloppy. After the sloppy start, you're down by 2 possessions, you get it back within 1, it's 14-7, your defense comes up with a massive stop, and at the end of the first quarter, it's 14-7 Northern Arizona, Arizona, with the Rattlers having the ball, putting themselves in a phenomenal position to get right back in this game. Early on in the second quarter, Jamal Miles, a 2-yard rushing touchdown. Northern Arizona gets a late hit penalty after the play. The point after is good. This is a tied game, 14-all, with 11 minutes and 38 seconds to go in the second quarter. Not long after, Northern Arizona's Sheldon Augustine, a 17-yard gain on 3rd and 11, and then a 20-yard touchdown to RCB. Drop kick is good. 22-14 Northern Arizona with 8 minutes and 4 seconds to go in the second quarter. Jamal Miles with a 15-yard return. Rattlers get the ball back. 7 minutes and 55 seconds to go. Then Braxton Haley, his first reception of the game, is a 21-yard gain after bobbling the pass a little bit. 7 minutes and 6 seconds to go. Then Northern Arizona challenges it. It came out of Haley's hands, bounced off of the wall, and was deemed an incomplete pass. 2nd and 10 for the Rattlers with 7 minutes and 6 seconds to go in the first half. On the very next play, Drew Powell, a 10-yard rush. Arizona does get their first down regardless. 6 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Drew Powell then throws the ball into traffic. Northern Arizona picks up the interception. That was number 14, Kerry Starks. Northern Arizona takes an offside penalty. 1st and 15 with 5 minutes and 2 seconds to go. Then RCB, a massive 30-yard reception. Dylan Winfrey does stop him, but he was slow to get up. 3:11 to go. Jermaine Dobbs does stop Northern Arizona from scoring. They go for the drop kick. It is good. 26-14 Northern Arizona with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go in the first half. Drew Powell then throws another interception under pressure. This one, he was on the run. Wranglers ball, 43 seconds to go in the first half. Northern Arizona attempted a field goal from their own red zone. Jamal Miles had a 40-plus yard return that was called back due to an illegal blindside block by Arizona. The Rattlers get the ball on their own 5-yard line with 15 seconds to go in the half. One frustrating thing is that the Arizona Rattlers they feel like one of the most undisciplined football teams out there because they just take these stupid penalties consistently, or at the very least they have this entire season, and it came back to bite them in the playoffs. Then former Rattler Theo Majette with a fumble recovery touchdown. The drop kick is good. The Arizona Rattlers are down 34-14 with 8 seconds to go in the first half. Isaiah Houston, a 20-yard kickoff return. Northern Arizona offside penalty. The ball is on the 15-yard line, and Arizona's field goal attempt is no good. They go into halftime down 34-14. As I'm probably going to mention later on, those 3 points could have been massive for Arizona, though I am not blaming kicker Shane McInerney because it's not his fault. He did miss that field goal, yes. However, it shouldn't have had to come down to that field goal with how terrible the offense played in that first half. And speaking of a terrible first half, Drew Powell, he went 1 for 13 in the first half with 3 interceptions and that fumble, meaning he had 4 turnovers to just 1 complete pass, 3 interceptions to just 1 complete pass. It was an absolute disaster of a first half by the Arizona Rattlers and their multiple-time MVP quarterback. Start of the second half, Dylan Winfrey commits pass interference on an incomplete pass. 1st and goal on the 2-yard line, just 32 seconds into the third quarter. RCB, yet another touchdown, this one being a 6-yard touchdown. The drop kick is good. 42-14 Northern Arizona, just 2.5 minutes into the third quarter. Skip ahead to the next offensive possession. Drew Powell completes his second pass of the night. A 5-yard pass to Jaeger Gardner, follows that up with a first down run. 11 minutes and 15 seconds to go in the third quarter. Another 5-yard pass to Gardner, giving Drew Powell his 3rd completion of the night against his 3 interceptions. And then Drew Powell finds Gardner for an 18-yard touchdown. The point after is good. 42-21 Northern Arizona with just under 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. You get back-to-back bad snaps by Northern Arizona, with the first one being canceled out by a penalty, and then a fumble recovery touchdown by Connor Taylor. Point after is good. 42-28, the Arizona Rattlers get back-to-back touchdowns, getting right back in this game. 6 minutes and 45 seconds to go in the third quarter. Northern Arizona takes a false start penalty, bringing them back to their own 4-yard line for a 1st and 15. The Rattlers might have gotten away with an offside on 2nd and 15, but then we go to a 4th down, and the snake pit was once again just roaring. It was electric in there. Northern Arizona goes for a field goal. It goes out of bounds. The Rattlers get the ball at the 20-yard line. Arizona does take a false start penalty, however. 1st and 15 with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. Drew Powell fights through contact for a 10-yard gain. 2nd and 5 with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Then he finds Jaeger Gardner for a 19-yard gain, giving him a 1st and goal on the 6-yard line with 1:40 to go in the third quarter. Then Jamal Miles, a 6-yard rushing touchdown. Point after is good. 42-35 Northern Arizona with just 50 seconds to go in the third quarter. And that is right. The Arizona Rattlers, after being down 20 at half and 28 to start the second half, are now within 7 points. It is a one-possession football game right off of the back of their defense really generating that tone and the offense starting to get things done. To follow that up, the Rattlers stopped the Wranglers on their own 10-yard line, and their defense and special teams were just showing a specific brand of confidence, and after 3 quarters, the score is 42-35 Northern Arizona. The Rattlers outscored Northern Arizona 21-8 in the third quarter. To start off the fourth quarter, Northern Arizona avoids a sack in their own end zone. The pass was deflected. 3rd and 12 about 40 seconds in, and once again, the snake pit was just roaring. An incomplete pass bringing up 4th and 12, and another long field goal attempt is no good. Jamal Miles with the return, an illegal blindside block on Arizona, giving the Rattlers the ball on their own 15-yard line with 13 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the game. Northern Arizona takes a penalty, giving the Rattlers a first down on the 20-yard line with 12 minutes and 43 seconds to go. Jamal Miles with a solid game, but Northern Arizona takes another penalty, 1st and 5 on the 15-yard line with about 12 and a half minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Jaeger Gardner with an 18-yard gain to make it 1st and goal on the 2-yard line, and then Drew Powell with a 2-yard touchdown. Point after is no good, however. There was a bumbled snap. 42-41 Northern Arizona with 10 and a half minutes to go. The Arizona Rattlers almost tied it. It is a 1-point game, but as I noted when it happened, that mistake would cost them. Anyway, Chris Page with an interception. The Rattlers get the ball right back. 9:37 to go in the fourth quarter, and then Jamal Miles a 3-yard rushing touchdown. And while the 2-point conversion afterwards was no good, the Arizona Rattlers take their first lead of the night, 47-42, with 6 minutes and 29 seconds to go in the game. Also worth noting that Northern Arizona then changed their quarterback. Garrett Kettle came in with 6 minutes and 23 seconds to go. Both teams commit offsetting penalties. The ball is on the 22-yard line with 6:20 to go. Connor Taylor misses out on a sack, but Justin Thomas grabs the face mask, giving Northern Arizona a 1st and 10 with the ball on the 14-yard line with 5.5 minutes to go. And the Arizona Rattlers defense, they almost had this game. The Rattlers defense almost stole this game back, but unfortunately a face mask penalty like that would come back to haunt them. There's a 4th and 10 coming up with 3.5 minutes. Then Arizona, number 99, delay of game, making it a 4th and 4. Northern Arizona RCB once again with a touchdown, this time on 4th down. Drop kick is no good. Northern Arizona takes a 1-point lead, 48-47, with 3 minutes and 4 seconds to go. There was an injury on the play. Arizona's number 20, Chris Page, was slow to get up, but did get back of his own volition, as well as number 5, Jermaine Dobbs. Isaiah Houston recovers the onside kick, balls on the 22-yard line with 3 minutes and 1 second to go. Drew Powell, instead of throwing it into traffic, throws the ball out of bounds. Northern Arizona roughing the passer penalty, a 1st and 10 on Northern Arizona's 14-yard line with 2:41 to go. And then Drew Powell finds Isaiah Houston, 10-yard gain, 1st and 10 on the 4-yard line with an even 2 minutes to go. QB sneak is unsuccessful. It's 3rd and goal on the 1-yard line at the 1-minute warning. And then Drew Powell fights through contact on a 1-yard rushing touchdown. The 2-point attempt is no good. 53-48 Arizona with 53 seconds to go. And it felt like at that point, the Rattlers had complete control of the game, because even if Northern Arizona scored, the Rattlers would have at least 2 timeouts and full control of the clock to make their way down the field and either kick the game-winning field goal or get the game-winning touchdown. I set this scene specifically like this because it did not matter how many turnovers the Rattlers had in the first half. It did not matter that the Rattlers gave up that pick 6. It didn't matter that the Rattlers gave up that fumble recovery touchdown. None of those mistakes mattered, because at this point, with 53 seconds to go, despite not being able to get 3 extra points because they went for 2-point conversions and messed up the 1 field goal snap, despite the fact they did not get those 3 points from their kicker at the end of the first half, they still had a 5-point lead with less than a minute to go. The Rattlers did have control of this football game at the very end. I need this to be very clear when I talk about it, because the Rattlers could have, and it could be argued, should have won this football game. Northern Arizona with an illegal block below the knee penalty. The ball goes back to the 8-yard line with 45 seconds to go. Then Arizona, an illegal contact beyond 5 yards. It's 1st and 10 on the 12-yard line, 41 seconds. Northern Arizona puts Watson back in the game. He finds RCB for a 38-yard touchdown, but the drop kick was no good. 54-53 Northern Arizona with just 34 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Jamal Miles manages just a 1-yard return, so the ball's on Arizona's own 1-yard line with 31 seconds to go. But despite that, once again, it is a 1-point game. Arizona has multiple timeouts left, and there is 31 seconds to go. The Rattlers had time to make their way down the field to field field goal range with the ability to stop the clock, control the pace, and get that game-winning field goal. Drew Powell's next pass is picked off. It's a pick six. The flag on the play is for an offensive illegal formation. The touchdown does count. The Rattlers do bat down the field goal, however, but there's a flag on that play on the Rattlers. They do a re-kick. Then the drop kick is good. It's 62-53 with 16 seconds to go. Jamal Miles gets the ball on the 25-yard line with 9 seconds to go. And then Drew Powell throws an interception in the other end zone. There's flags after the play. Northern Arizona unsportsmanlike. They would exchange some more penalties, but the final score would be 62-53 Northern Arizona. That had to be one of the most frustrating and disappointing endings to a football game I've seen. For context, I've been to 2 Arena Bowls and 2 United Bowls and not once got to witness my team win. So yes, this is coming from the perspective of a Rattlers fan. I do cover the team, but I also am still a fan at the core. There was 31 seconds to go. Yes, Jamal Miles does mess up the return. It's a 1-yard return. You're right up in your own end zone, but they should have ran the dang ball. They had timeouts. There was still time left, and it's only a 50-yard field. All they needed to do was get about 5 yards on the run, and that gives you more than enough wiggle room to go for a pass right around the middle of the field, and then you're right around field goal range, and you probably only used up 1 of your 2 timeouts. Instead, Drew Powell threw his second pick six of the night and 4th interception at that point. The 5th interception, I'm not even going to blame. All right, at that point, the game was already over. They were just trying to get something on the board, see if you can generate something. I don't care about that. Yes, at the end of the night, we're going to look at his totals, and we're going to criticize Drew Powell for his individual performance, but that last interception does not matter, because that pick six is what sealed the game. The pick six is what gave Northern Arizona the points, and then taking a penalty, giving them a re-kick, which gave them the opportunity to go for another drop kick, giving them 2 points instead of 1. If the Rattlers didn't take that penalty, it is 60-53. It's a 7-point game, still a 1-possession game, and the Rattlers still theoretically could have made their way down the field and got the game-tying touchdown to send this to overtime, or scored the touchdown, finally converted on a 2-point conversion, and then you're going on to the next round. Because regardless of what likely would have happened, regardless of how poorly the Rattlers played in the first half, regardless of how poorly they played in those big clutch situations, as long as they still had the opportunity, this game was not done. The defense played so hard in the second half, did so much work to get this team back in the game, and the offense, yes, was playing better as well. I do need to give a lot of credit to Drew Powell in the second half. Give a lot of credit to Jamal Miles, Jaeger Gardner. The offense was playing well, but that defense really was the reason the team was in it, and it came down once again to another bad penalty, giving Northern Arizona a re-kick, giving them 2 points. Drew Powell's pick six could have been forgotten if that penalty didn't happen. All right, there is so much blame everywhere on the field to be given in this game because this should have been a Rattlers victory. I will say it, yes, I'm biased. I am a Rattlers fan. Of course I want to see them move on. Of course I think highly of them, but this defense showed how good they can be. The offense has been consistently great all season. They ended the season on an 8-game winning streak. I do not understand what happened here. I do not understand why they were so careless with the football. I don't understand the play calling. I don't understand what was going on. Yes, Coach Guy did touch on it in the post-game press conference, talking about how they were expecting zone, but Northern Arizona switched to man. I feel like most teams, most coaches should be able to make that adjustment, so if it really is as simple as that, I don't personally buy it. Obviously, Coach Guy said he has to look at the tape. I have no access to that kind of coach's film. No idea what he's looking at. I'm not him. I don't have that level of expertise. I don't know what I'm looking at. But what I do know is, regardless of all the massive amount of mistakes, the bad plays, the turnovers, pick sixes, fumble recovery touchdowns, this team was still in it all the way until the end with a pick six, and then even past that, a penalty on the point after attempt, which gave Northern Arizona 2 more points. Going back to that missed field goal at the end of the first half, if Shane McInerney hits that, even with those points on the board, the Rattlers are still right back in this game because it would have been 62-56. If Reyna never bumbles that snap and that point after goes in, it's 62-54. If the Rattlers went for a point after kick on all 3 of those attempts and made them, it is 62-56. No matter how you slice it, the Rattlers had their opportunities. There was plenty of chances for them to win this game and be in this game. They were in the game at the very end, and that's the most frustrating part, is it shows how good this team is. It shows how good those players are, because regardless of all the massive amounts of blockades and boulders this team put in front of them in this football game, they still had the opportunity to win it at the end. And it came down to a pick six and a penalty on a point after. That is just so frustrating. And as someone who is sitting sitting in the media row for this game, I don't know how I looked like on the outside. I don't know how my facial expression was, but it was just one of the most disappointed feelings I've ever felt in my life. Because again, this team is good. This team was gosh darn good all season, and even through all those mistakes, they still had the opportunity to win, and it still looked like and felt like with 30 seconds to go in the football game that they could and were going to win this game. Just because I said I would talk about it earlier on in this episode, alright, Drew Powell, 8 for 21, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He also had 72 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Jamal Miles had 3 rushing touchdowns. Jaeger Gardner and Jamal Miles each had receiving touchdowns. They really were the best players offensively, and Braxton Haley, who was the best receiver not named Isaiah Houston in the regular season before he got injured, was back in this game, and you wouldn't have noticed it because he didn't have a single reception. Now, that does not mean I think Haley played particularly terrible. What I think happened is Haley either was rusty and or Drew Powell just didn't hit the targets whenever Braxton Haley was open, but I also noticed a lot of plays when Haley wasn't even out there, which kind of signals to me that Braxton Haley wasn't 100%. But going back to Drew Powell, alright, he had a terrible game in the air. It was a bad game as a passing quarterback, yet he was still just as advertised on the running game. He still had an okay game when you average it out, despite having 5 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, and a fumble recovery touchdown. Jaeger Gardner was the leading receiver with 60 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Miles had 25 rushing yards, 10 receiving yards, and 4 total touchdowns. There were individual offensive players that were playing really well. And the defense, I'm just going to stand by this right now, alright, RCB is not human. That dude was made in a lab. But with how good that defense played in the second half, with how much they rallied, Page had an interception. Connor Taylor had both a fumble recovery touchdown and 2 tackles for loss. Merriweather had a pass breakup, as did Ulrich Jones, who also had a massive tackle for loss. Harold Love and Chris Page also had half tackles for loss. There were so many individual players with individual amazing plays at key moments that got this team juiced, that got them going out there, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough. And to just wrap this up real quick, I'm disappointed because this team could have been and should have been better, because this team, these players are really good, and I am just disappointed that this is how they played in the playoffs.